All right, good morning, everyone. I apologize, as always, for starting late. I meant to start this at 10:30, and then, when you're live streaming, at least the way that I do it here, you have to set things up, and things have to be in working order before you get going. So here we are. My intention, shout out to my father, my intention is not to stay on here for an hour. It's a football Saturday, and I am in Western New York, and I am meeting a buddy to watch football this afternoon. So my plan is to get in and get out. As always, I have something very, very specific that I want to share with everyone, and I think, I think this is a good teaching moment, and I think that this. I think this will be very educational for whoever watches this, because the general public, and I've said this several times, the general public does not know a lot about science. And another content creator actually told me one time that, the general public, for the most part, is just oblivious to these topics. And I just attended last week, the annual meeting for the National Association of Science Writers in Boulder, Colorado, at the University of Colorado, or is it Colorado University? Either way, science communication is something that I'm interested in getting into in terms of a full-time career. And that's what that conference was about. And I had so many epiphanies last week, and I met so many people last week. And one of the things that I realized, and one of the things that I think needs to be brought to the forefront and repeated over and over, is that the messenger is important. So, you have people working on artificial intelligence, you have people working on machine learning and new pharmaceuticals and alternative energies. You have people working on these things. You have people studying and debating the climate, what's happening with the climate, what's happening with the earth, what's happening with our world. The earth is burning. The oceans are boiling. Okay. And then you have scientists saying, no, that's not true. Carbon dioxide is not a major player in terms of being a greenhouse gas. But one of the critical components in there is the communication of those scientific innovations and discussions with the general public, because the general public doesn't know. And from what I'm hearing, the people in the United States are falling further and further behind in terms of the sciences. So why does this matter? Well, it certainly matters around election time, because during elections, we as citizens, we are hit with a lot of messages, and we are hit with a lot of propaganda from candidates and politicians. And if you don't know what they're talking about, if you haven't researched the particular issue that they're talking about, if you don't even care about the particular issue that they're talking about, you'll click vote, and you won't know what you voted for. And in some instances, they may be able to scare you into voting for them or coming down on a particular side. So I believe in having all of the information, even if it's not popular. I believe in having all of the information and then making the best possible decision you can, and for everybody, having all the information. A problem is that a lot of Americans are distracted and are not looking at important topics of the day. So today we're going to talk about peer review and PAL review. And I'm going to talk about why. I don't know how many folks I'm going to get right now, but this is a very, very important topic, especially in the climate arena. All right, I'm going to play my short intro, and then I'm going to share this on my original Big Discussions channel. I have one piece I'm going to read. I'm going to context it. I'm going to put it in context, and I'm going to say why I'm reading this. I'm going to read it. It's a relatively short piece from Forbes. but it's a very, very important piece. And then I'm going to wrap the stream up because I have to go meet a buddy for football. So I'm going to play my short intro here with Miss Cheryl Pons, and then I'm going to jump in. No matter how long, speaking of jumping in and jumping out, no matter how long you click on the stream, if you're watching on the playback, please smash that like button. The likes are free and they help out with the engagement.
So Anwar, I see you have the periodic tables on your chest.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that all about? Why are you walking around with a chemistry chart on your chest?
Well, Cheryl, so this channel is a STEM channel. So when I was conceiving of it and figuring out how to grow it, I figured I should have some T-shirts to go with it. So the periodic table is critical to most of the scientific fields. Welcome to Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. Science and technology are all around us, all of the time, and there are always science and technology stories to tell. There are always science and technology stories to tell. For this new version of StreamYard, I don't know why, but the old drops and the old clips that I made, they get cut off early. Let me finish sharing this over on my original channel. Thank you to everyone who has smashed the like button. If you come through and you hang out for the next half hour, please let me know who you are and what you think about any of this. Let me switch back. Okay, so where did this stream come from? Well, as I was laying in bed this morning, I'm in Western New York right now. I told my mother I'd help her out with something outdoors, and we had to do it yesterday as opposed to today. The forecast said that it would rain today, and it is a cold, wet, rainy day here in Western New York. So the weather model was accurate in this instance. But where did this stream come from? So earlier this year, I took a whole interest in the climate debate / discussion, and throughout and on this channel, probably for the last year and a half, I've been talking about and I've been asking the question, do you believe in science? I was confronted with that question about 2 years ago. I'm not going to get into all the gory details, but it stemmed from a political difference. I'm not going to get into the gory details, but someone confronted me with the question, do you believe in science? All right. And it was an unexpected question. It was a bit of a murky question, especially and for the context within it was asked. And it was a weird question because I'm a scientist. If who doesn't believe in science if I don't? Why would I not believe in science? Well, the truth is that there could be varying viewpoints on a given thing or a specific thing. And depending upon what it is, it can be very, very polarizing. And this whole climate discussion is like that. And it's one of those things where I made this slide in this discussion / debate, because it's a debate. It's not a one-way thing. You have what are called climate alarmists and climate deniers. And studying this thing, if you're not on the alarmist side, it seems to be if you're not with us, you're against us. It seems to be that type of thing. So if you say, we don't know what's going on with the climate, we don't know what's going on with the earth, we don't know what's going on with the weather, people may scrutinize you and demonize you and cancel you in some instances. Will I 3R thank you for stopping through? By the way, I found this T-shirt yesterday. I ordered this a while ago. This is a science themed T-shirt. Cheryl Pons talked about that in the intro. This one reads, "Everything is a poison. Nothing is a poison. It is the dose that makes the poison." Okay, so that's a law that is generally understood in the field of toxicology. I'll come back to that in another stream. But do you believe in science? And what is science? And if you don't agree with me, does that mean you don't believe in science? So that burdensome question about 2 to 3 years ago caused me, well, it was beneficial, and it caused me to generate this slide. Do you believe in science? Science is asking why. Science is considering alternative hypotheses. Science is having a flexibility of mind. Science is generating hard data. Science is not believing things blindly. Science is peer review of data. We're going to talk about that today. And science is thinking critically and questioning things, not just following a specific bureaucracy, not just following what a candidate says, and not just following propaganda that may be there to herd people in a certain direction. It's about thinking and getting all the information you can get, in some instances performing experiments, and then coming up with your own answer or hypothesis. And again, not everybody will agree, and science isn't necessarily about consensus. So I've talked about Dr. Willie Soon here. I've played his drops numerous times. I'll play one right now. I hope this doesn't take away from the seriousness of the channel, but part of YouTubing is entertaining. So similar to my sports channel and my original channel, I added some drops. So many of you have seen these drops from Dr. Willie Soon.
It turns out that this climate is among the most misunderstood subject, because Al Gore, the average D student, thinks that he understands climate. My God, it's as sure as gravity. He always say that. You guys are just denier, right?
So that's Dr. Willie Soon. I discovered him. I was driving here to Buffalo during the holiday season last year, and there was a big snowstorm here, and I couldn't get into Buffalo from Albany on Christmas. So I came into Buffalo maybe 2 or 3 days after Christmas. People got snowed in, people lost power, people died in their cars. So it got really, really cold, and it got really, really snowy here. But as I was driving here to Buffalo, the YouTube algorithm presented me Dr. Willie Soon's talk with another gentleman. I think his name is Jim Bloom, or it's below in the description box. You can watch it yourself, and I would encourage all of my subs here to watch that video. It's that talk. It's at the Independent Institute. It's very, very funny, but he presents a lot of important questions. He takes some shots at Al Gore in there in the IPCC, but he asks some very, very important questions, and I'm leaving that in the description box below. I watch that talk a lot. Every time I listen to it, I hear something different, and I started pulling the publications from that talk so I could read the data and the reports for myself. But one of the things I heard yesterday, because when you listen to something, you often hear things differently each time you listen, or you hear new things. He said, unfortunately today, and this is killing science, but science, especially in this particular area, the climate, it's becoming more about PAL review as opposed to peer review. So PAL review versus peer review. And this is something, if you're not in science, if you're watching MSNBC every night, if you're not paying attention, you won't know what this means or why it's significant. We're going to get into this shortly. Since I played a Willie Soon drop, I might as well play an Al Gore drop. So here's my Al Gore rant, part 1.
We're still putting 162 million tons into it every single day. And the accumulated amount is now trapping as much extra heat as would be released by 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and sucking the moisture out of the land and
boiling the oceans. Let me play my second Al Gore rant here.
And sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance on this world.
Okay, that was very passionate. It was very charged up. The world is burning. The oceans are boiling. But is that factual? Is that accurate? Okay, I'm gonna present another slide from the Dr. Willie Soon talk, and I thought this was very powerful because again, it just gets to how nuanced this whole thing is. This slide from Dr. Willie Soon states, and he says this in the talk, to understand climate is a mixture of an amalgamation of astronomy, solar physics, geology, geochronology, geochemistry, sedimentology, tectonics, paleontology, paleoecology, glaciology, climatology, meteorology, oceanography, ecology, archaeology, and history. Okay, and that's just a starting point. So it's a very, very complex thing, and unless you're taking into account all of those aspects, you're not really having a real honest conversation. And so, in terms of the deniers versus the alarmists, if you boil this down to its bare bones, what you're really looking at is a difference in philosophy. Modeling data versus hard measurements. Okay. What predictions are the models making, right? Versus what the hard data are telling us. The testable hypotheses. What are they telling us? All right. And in another video, Dr. Soon said, with two Irish gentlemen, the alarmist side feels like they want to create answers that can't be questioned. The denier side wants they want to address questions that have a hard time being answered. So there are two different philosophies there. So peer review versus pal review. What is it and why do we care? Please smash that like button if you have not. I'm not going to get into my graduate thesis in this talk. I'm going to show this really, really quickly. But I did talk about my graduate thesis before. This is my graduate thesis. This is chapter 1 of my graduate thesis. So it's funny when you are going through something, you don't understand everything you're learning when you are in it. And so about a month ago or several weeks ago, I talked about figure 1 of my graduate thesis. And one of the lessons I learned from my graduate advisor is that when you show something, you have to show it, you have to prove it. So chapter 1 of your paper has to be proof, okay? And all the other figures are going to come after that. So the first figure of your paper is the first chapter of the paper, okay? But the key is we showed the effect one way, but my graduate advisor said, well, how do we know it's not this, this, and this? So we had to disprove the other things that it could be, and that solidified our initial finding. So that's a major part of it. If you're going to assert something, you have to rule out the other parts and the other hypotheses, right? You guys understand that? Now, so that was one take home from this. And again, as I was going through this, I didn't understand this from the three-dimensional level. The other thing I want you to think about when you're looking at this paper is that this was peer-reviewed, okay? We couldn't just publish this. This had to go in front of other experts, okay? And they gave the initial manuscript a hard look. And they said, okay, well, we see you guys want to publish this. These are the holes in this paper. These are questions that need to be addressed in this paper. And if you guys don't address this, then we can't publish it. And if you guys don't address this, then your story is not complete, right? So that's peer review. It has to go through a group of credible experts who are not going to just green light it and rubber stamp it just because. So that's peer review. So quality science is questioned and vetted and thoroughly vetted by other scientists. Sometimes scientists who don't agree with your hypothesis and scientists who don't agree with your assertions. So that's peer review. We're going to read about that shortly. I'm going to read some comments here. Let's see. Willie R says, good Saturday, brothers. I believe in science. The problem is the politics that infect the institutions where scientific pursuits take place and will not allow independent inquiries and objective inquiry to take place. I think inquest. I've never seen that word before, inquest. He says, a lot of people don't know how to separate the politics from the objectivity and independence that science as a vocation and lifestyle is supposed to represent. Yep, he says, I said it before and I'll say it again. Where was Al Gore when we needed him to fight out in Florida back in 2000? Michael Roth says, there's no question that humans are impacting this planet negatively, primarily by fossil fuels and capitalism. Michael Ross, thank you for your dissenting opinion. Thank you for your observation. That's not a consensus. That's just not a consensus. So, and I think one of the problems with this whole thing is that there's not equal reporting and there's not equal capturing on all sides of this discussion. There's only capturing of one side and there's demonizing of the other side. So thank you for coming through, Michael Ross. Okay, so this piece here, when I watched the Willie Soon talk yesterday, when I listened to it, peer review and pal review stuck out in my ears. And I went out to get a glass of wine yesterday and I just did a quick Google search on my phone. Okay, and I said, well, what is pal review? I know what peer review is, but what is pal review? So this article came up on Forbes. It's not a long piece, but I'm going to read this. So YouTube. So right now, YouTube, I've learned YouTube is going through and they're scrubbing out links from your description box if they think those links are spam. So I would leave this below in the description box. I don't feel like going through it, but this is the title. It's called Peer Review and Pal Review in Climate Science. And this was written by Patrick Michaels. This article, nope, it's more than 10 years old, but this is a current topic, and this is a dynamic that is happening, at least in this community, in this science community. So if you want to pull this article for yourself, this is on Forbes. It looks like if you're not subscribed to Forbes, you have five clicks before they put it behind the paywall. But we're going to go through this right now. This is by Patrick Michaels. I write about the interface of public science and public policy. All right. By the way, let me drop this for a second. By the way, I did at the National Association of Science Writers Conference last week. Michael Mann. Okay, so there are names in this thing. There are names on the alarmist side. There are names on the denier side. And Michael Mann is one of the big names on the alarmist side. And he did what's the word? He gave us a talk at the meeting remotely. So Michael Mann he talked remotely. He gave a speech remotely. And so I sat in on a Michael E. Mann talk. And I do plan to read his book. Because, again, for me, I want to understand both sides. Not everybody is like that. So I do plan to read Michael Mann's book. That doesn't mean I'm going to believe and side with everything he says, but I want to read both sides. All right. If anyone is watching and wants to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are here. I don't have a Super Chat or AdSense. I'm not even sure YouTube wants me talking about this. But if you want to make a donation, that information is there. All right. Publishing in the scientific literature is supposed to be tough. Submit a manuscript to a reputable journal and it will go through quote unquote peer review where your equals criticize your work. Send their comments to a journal editor, and then the editor will decide whether to accept your submission, reject it outright, or something in between. There's also accepting a manuscript with revisions. All right. Accepting a manuscript with revisions. In order to limit any bias caused by personal or philosophical animosity, the editor should remove your name from the paper and send it to other experts who have no apparent conflict of interest in reviewing your work. You and the reviewers should not know who each other are. This is called a double-blind peer review. All right. So once again, as an example, I create a paper, Will IR3 and Michael Ross, they're reviewers at a journal. Okay. The editor should take my name off the manuscript and send it to Will IR3 and Michael Ross. And Michael Ross are experts in this particular field. They would give comments, unbiased comments and recommendations and feedback to the editor. That's peer review. All right. Well, this is the way it is supposed to be. But in the intellectually inbred, filthy rich world of climate science, where billions of dollars of government research money support trillions of dollars of government policy, peer review has become anything but that. Okay. So that's another concern, and that's that government dollars and bureaucracies and narratives have kind of gotten in and are steering the science towards certain answers versus it being pure curiosity and pure hypothesis-driven science. So we're going to pay you to find the answer that we want you to find because there are policies that we want to enforce, and we need the science to show that. That's two different things. There is simply no double-blindedness for reasons that remain mysterious. All the major climate journals leave the authors' names on manuscripts sent out for review. Economists, psychologists, and historians of science all tell us, and I am inclined to believe them, that we act within our rational self-interest. Removing the double-blind restriction in such an environment is an invitation for science abuse. What about if my professional advancement is dependent upon climate change monies, which applies to just about every academic or government climatologist? I'm liable to really like a paper that says this is a horrible and important problem and likely to rail against an author who says it's probably a bit overblown. May God have mercy on any manuscript that mentions the rather large elephant in the room, which is that we probably don't do much about it anyway. Such confirmation bias has been noted and studied for years, but the response of science in general in atmospheric science in particular, has only been to make things worse. Peer review has become pal review. Send a paper to one of the very many journals published by the American Geophysical Union, the world's largest publisher of academic climate science, and you can suggest 5 reviewers. The editor doesn't have to take your advice, but he's more likely to if you bought him dinner at the last AGU meeting, isn't he? That is, of course, unless journal editors are somehow different than government officials, congressmen, or you. Or if you get wind that someone is about to publish something threatening your gravy train, maybe you can cajole the editor to keep it out of print for a year while you prepare a counter manuscript. Okay, Dr. Soon talks about all of this in his lecture, which is in the description box below. Please smash that like button if you haven't. That's what that's what the ClimateGate gang did with the International Journal of Climatology when University of Rochester's David Douglas submitted a paper. His work showed that a large warming at high altitudes in the tropics, one of the major ways in which the enhanced greenhouse effect is supposed to change the climate, isn't happening. For the gory details, click here. There's a link there. I plan to read that. The story on this one is still unfolding as the journal has declined to publish a sequel to the counter manuscript. Okay. Let me read that again. That's what the ClimateGate gang did with the International Journal of Climatology when University of Rochester's David Douglas submitted a paper. His work showed that a large warming at high altitudes in the tropics, one of the major ways in which the enhanced greenhouse effect is supposed to change the climate, isn't happening. For the gory details, click here. The story on this one is still unfolding as the journal has declined to publish a sequel to the counter manuscript. So that right there, who knew, unless you were in this particular community, who knew that there was a ClimateGate scandal? All right. Who knew that this thing was going on at all? Everyone else was looking at basketball and football and social media and other things. But who knew that this was going on? And politicians are running on this. They're running on oceans boiling. All right. Or you could simply ignore manuscripts sent to you that find problems with temperature histories. But there has to be a gold standard somewhere, right? Perhaps the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences, PNAS. Dream on. If you are a member of the National Academy, you can submit 4 manuscripts a year called contributed papers, as long as you do the peer review yourself. That's right. You send your manuscript to 2 of your friends and then mail your paper along with their comments. Again, pal review. The PNAS editor then rubber stamps the results. In fact, the editor probably goes through quite a few rubber stamps a year, given that only 15 of the 800 odd contributed papers submitted in the last year were rejected. For comparative purposes, Nature would have accepted only about 50 of that number. A recent paper submitted to PNAS by National Academy member Richard Lindzen was afforded special treatment. The editor insisted that it be held to a different standard of review because of its political implications. Lindzen's research found that carbon dioxide warming is likely to be much lower than what is being calculated by current climate models. Okay, so there's that point. So can you all still hear me? Can you still hear me? Say yes, no. Could you guys still hear me? StreamYard just did, my window just went dark with a spinning circle. And it looks like this is still going. All right, Professor Black Ops, thank you. All right. So that last paragraph there, and once again, you're looking at a model output, a model prediction versus hard data. That's at the heart of the debate over this whole thing. Do we believe what the models are going to project? Have we given the models accurate information? Even if we have, can the models give accurate predictions? And what has the historical record taught us? And what do our actual data measurements tell us? Big disagreement there. Thank you, Willie R3. Appreciate that. So what about the Legion of Alarmist papers from NASA firebrand James Hansen that PNAS publishes via PAL Review? Don't they have political implications too? In the mind of our National Academy, apparently some political implications are more equal than others. There's a lot of confirmation bias working in Hansen's favor because it's back-to-back for the Plain or Ham and Egger climate scientists if Lindzen is right. That's where the political implications get personal. There's a lot more to this story. Lindzen eventually published his paper, which actually benefited from real review in an obscure journal. But the next time you think that peer review is unbiased, think of confirmation bias, PAL Review, and ClimateGate, and try to figure a way out of the mess that climate science has gotten itself into. All right, that's it. So this says, Patrick J. Michaels is a senior fellow in environmental studies at the Cato Institute and author and editor of A Climate Coup, Global Warming's Invasion of Our Government and Our Lives. That's him right there. But this is a name, Dr. Richard Lindzen. His name came up in the Dr. Willie Soon talk that I've linked in the description box below. I would encourage everyone to watch it. It's long, it's entertaining, but he asks, and he takes quite a few shots at Al Gore, but he asks some important questions, and he very eloquently frames the other side of this discussion. But I thought that this would be a good discussion and a good way to discuss the principles of peer review and PAL review, because again, the general public, and especially the Black community, I think most of my subs on this channel are Black. Much of the Black community doesn't understand science. They don't understand these things. They don't understand these nuances. And then this hurts. This hurts in terms of, plugging young people into specific career sectors and specific job sectors and industries. But it also hurts very badly around election time. Because if you don't know anything about these issues, specific candidates will come in and tell you any old thing and tell you, that the world is going to end tomorrow. They're going to tell you that, we're killing the earth, and every crisis, every weather and temperature event is due to man, which is not true. Okay, and things can be conflated, things that have nothing to do. I should probably stop there. But if you don't understand these fundamental issues and these fundamental principles, people can come in and tell you anything. I think that's what I want you all to take away from this. Willie R3 says, okay, appreciate that, letting me know You can hear me. StreamYard sometimes does things while you're streaming. And sometimes if YouTube doesn't like what you're showing, they'll cut the stream off on their side. Yeah, he says corporate liberals and establishment left is definitely being insanely hyperbolic on this climate change stuff. He says, how much of climate change is human generated versus how much is normal cycling patterns of the planet is where I am not, whereas where I am at on the issue. That's an important question as well. But you have to have some fundamental understanding of what the earth and the sun and going back to this slide, you have to have some fundamental understanding of these things to look at it the way you're looking at it. Will I R3? Okay, you have to, and that. Hold on. My mother still has a landline, so it rings, and there's this little AI voice that tells her who's calling. Hold on. No, well, I haven't gotten a 202 call just yet. You know, and that's a good point. Well, I R3. There's risk. There is risk in talking about this, and there is risk in not going along with the prevalent narrative. There's risk to me, but I'm just trying to get people to fill in the entire picture, and I'm just trying to show the other side of the discussion. I want people to decide, and I want people to be able to ask the right questions, and I want people to be prepared if and when someone comes in and tries to bully them because they don't believe the same thing that the bully believes. That's what I want. Let's see. Will I R3? I'm going to read a few more of these. I'm going to wrap up because I have to run. He says, I agree. Scientific pursuits not really robustly encouraged as a cultural habit in the hashtag ADOS community. No, it's not. So the things that I talked about today at the Thanksgiving dinner table will probably go over a lot of people's heads. These things, if you go to a church, these things will probably go over a lot of people's heads. So you're right. All right. Let's see. He says, it seems that if you as a Black person are interested in science, it comes as a happenstance, an accident, rather than purposeful intent. I am in the former. Okay, I'm getting this this choppy thing going on here. Okay, that looks better now. And then Professor Black Op says, shout out to the landline. My mom has one too. She had one too. And let's see, piecemeal is the way to go. Just give enough so that people who care can fill in the blanks on their own. All right. I need to wrap up. I'm getting the antenna thing here. Once again, everyone, this piece is I learn more about this. I will share this here. as long as it doesn't get me in trouble. This piece was called Peer Review and Pal Review in Climate Science. So this is something that went on, okay? But unless you were plugged into this community, you were none the wiser. And this is important because politicians were running on these things. They're running on these things. And what politicians do and don't do when they get in there, obviously that draws a lot of criticism. And their appointees and the secretaries, they choose when they get in there. That's significant and that's important. And you just need to be able to look and ask questions about who's doing what and why. And you want to understand what's going on as opposed to blindly following what someone is doing and what they're telling you. And finally, you don't want to be bullied. You don't want to be bullied by someone because you don't agree with what they say, or maybe you feel differently or think differently. And you want to be able to stand up to those bullies. Sometimes they're in your personal circle. Sometimes they're in your family. Sometimes they're coworkers. I wouldn't suggest engaging in this kind of debate with coworkers, but you want to be informed and you want to be able to stand up to those types of people. Okay. All right. I need to run. So thank you to those of you who watched this stream and those of you who hung out for this. If you are watching on the playback, please give this video a like. And if you want to donate something to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. Salty the Equalizer, thank you for stopping through. I'm just wrapping this up. If you're watching on the playback and you want to donate something to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. Also, please consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. In addition to being a YouTube content creator, I'm also a writer. This is the newsletter. There's a link in the description box. There's a 2-paragraph greeting, and there is a subscription button there at the bottom. You just click that button, and you are a part of the group there. So please consider signing up if you haven't. Look at this. I'm signing off, and all these folks are coming in. I'm going to take us out with another Dr. Willie Soon drop. I'd like to meet this gentleman one day. I'd like to interview this gentleman one day. Because here's one other thing. I was listening to a talk of his with 2 Irish scientists. Like, real scientists are not just curious about their own particular field. They're curious about other scientific areas as well. And these guys are also interested in COVID and I think just misinformation in general. And they're passionate about opposing science that is driven by politics. They want science in its purest form, and they're really, really outspoken against science that is driven by politics, which is very dangerous. All right, I'm gonna take us out with this drop, and I'm gonna wrap up.
For example, some people worry, why am I showing so many charts? Because you know why? Words are very bad because they are able to deceive you. You have to learn them. Every time they say this and that, you ask them, where is the data? I want to see the data.
Where is the data? I want to see the data. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you for staying on and listening, and thank you to those of you who will watch this on the playback. I hope you've watched the entire thing, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. I want to go back to Michael Ross's comment here. He says there is no question that humans are impacting this planet negatively, primarily by fossil fuels and capitalism. When you start to look at the data, when you start to look at the data generated by Dr. John Christie and Dr. Soon and Richard Lindzen, when you start to listen to some of these talks, and you actually start to look at some of the charts and the data and the figures, and well, that might change some of what you think. It might not. It might not. But when you start to read the actual studies and read the actual data, and you start to see some of the numbers they're generating, that might make you start to think in an alternative way. Anyhow, and I will be presenting some of that here going forward. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I'll talk to you next time. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.